good to see everyone out here. Some of your faces are familiar. It's good to see some new people here as well. My name is Lee May, and I am the interim CEO here in DeKalb County and Commissioner for District 5. And today is an exciting a day for me in this process in that we have an opportunity now to hire a new chief for our fire and rescue department here in DeKalb County. In my entire 7.5 years here, I have taken very seriously public safety and internally, both in police and fire, our marshal's office, and all of those other agencies that are part of the public safety community. And so to be in this position for me is one that is I feel an honor and a privilege of having a part of this process. As a commissioner over the years, I've always looked at the process of hiring individuals, and of course, I'm always thinking about how we can do a process that people can buy into, that people can be a part of, that is as transparent as can be. And this is a process that is new for DeKalb County. In DeKalb County, the majority of the department heads are hired and fired with the sole discretion of the CEO. There's only a handful that has to have confirmation by the Board of Commissioners. Both our police chief and fire chief are both positions that are hired solely by the CEO. But I truly believe that this should be a process that, one, is open to the public to participate in and to see before the final decision is made, and one that embraces the Board of Commissioners as a part of this process as well. So this is something that I'm excited about. Of course, with any process, it never goes absolutely the way that you would hope it to be, but hopefully you'll see this process as one as being transparent, open, for you to see before the final decision is made. My decision has not been made as of yet. Today is just, again, one of the steps in this process. The beginning of this process began with a public advertisement of the fire chief's position being open for someone to fill it. And that was done through our HR department under the leadership of our HR director, Benita Ransom. We received over about 110 applications as a result of this, and we had, of course, a number that were what we designated as qualified, meeting minimum qualifications, being well qualified, and those who are highly qualified. And we had 6 internal candidates as well that submitted as a result of this process. Those highly qualified, it was 6 positions that were deemed highly qualified. We put together a panel of experts and as well as internal employees. Zach Williams, our COO, was a part of that process. I opened it up to 2 of our commissioners from the Board of Commissioners to be a part of the interviewing process, and other experts externally. And they dwindled down the list down to 6 people. The 2 people behind me are 2 of the total that were interviewed. And today is really the second step in this process. On yesterday, they had an opportunity to answer questions that came in from employees in our fire and rescue department, and they responded to those questions. They opened up with an introduction of who they are. They answered questions as were presented to them. Both of them answered the same questions. It'll rotate back and forth. Then they closed as well, and that will be a similar process for today. I really want to, again, reiterate how important public safety is to all of our county. We want to make sure that we have the leadership in place to lead the organization. We want to make sure that we have stable leadership, long-term leadership, to really mold the department and be able to institute a vision, implement the vision, and make sure that we are providing the resources that are necessary to ensure that we have a successful fire department. We know that there have been issues in the fire department in terms of morale issues. We understand the realities of pay. Many of you all will see who are in fire and rescue a bonus in your check this month, 3% one-time bonus. That's something that we did this year just to say, look, we're serious about you and your well-being, and we are committed, and we're more than just talk. We want to do some tangible things to say that we value you and we understand the reality. We are currently going through our 2014 budget to make sure that we are putting in the resources necessary for our men and women in that department to be successful. Pay, of course, is one of the things that people are most concerned about in the department, and we are working on that as we speak. I think there will be, of course, people won't be absolutely happy, but I think you will see that there is a commitment to make some very conscientious steps moving forward. Currently, as we speak, there's a pay and class study going on for every department in our every employee position in our county, which will inform both me and the Board of Commissioners on the salary levels, the grade, the responsibilities, et cetera, to see if we are compensating those in our department adequately. I'll tell you the short answer is we already know we're not. So we're clear on that, but this will give us a more scientific approach, a more professional approach as to what the level of compensation ought to be so that we can react and respond to that. So today, again, you will be introduced to the two finalists, the short list of those candidates. You have Teresa Everett, who is currently the fire chief in Gary, Indiana. And then you have Mr. Darnell Fulham, who is the deputy chief in Fulton County as well. They will introduce themselves. We have today our moderator, Ms. Paula Grant, who many of you all have seen on TV in some way, shape, or form. She did an excellent job on yesterday. She'll be doing the same thing here today. And am I good? Do I need to do anything? We're going to bring up Mr. Williams, Zach Williams, who is, again, our executive assistant for our county and our chief operating officer.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. And I have the honor and privilege of introducing everyone to Ms. Paula Gwynn Grant. But before I do, I'd like to really thank the CEO and commend him for this whole process. As he mentioned earlier, that this is new, and it's an excellent example of open, transparent government, giving people an opportunity to have a conversation with potential executives and leading important operations before the final decision is made. But I'm delighted to introduce our moderator for this event, Paula Gwynn Grant, a public relations expert with more than 20 years experience as a radio and television broadcaster. And she started at about 5 years old, I'm guessing, because to have 20 years is difficult to believe. Many of you will recognize Paula as a program host on DCTV's Inside DeKalb. More importantly, she has a tremendous understanding of media and government relations and has previously served as communications director and public relations counsel for local and national elected leaders. I also want to share her broader experience as Vice President of Communications and Community Development for the Housing Authority of DeKalb County, where she's responsible for all internal and external communications. Without further ado, it's my pleasure to present Paula Gwynn Grant.
Thank you so much, Mr. Williams. I appreciate that introduction. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is an important event where your voice can be heard. At this moment, before we get started, I'd like to ask the audience members that are present here in the auditorium to please move forward. We have a number of empty seats. We don't bite. It's okay up here. Come on up and let's fill these empty seats where we can get engaged and listen up close. We'd love to have you just come up a little bit farther. Perfect. Thank you so much. This is going to be an evening where you get to hear directly from these candidates. This is your opportunity, and I'm pleased to serve as your moderator for this informative event. Now, the purpose is to introduce you to these candidates for the Fire Rescue Chief position. This is being done not only for the departmental personnel, but also for the general community, and we thank you for joining us. Today's forum will begin by me selecting a name of the candidate who will begin first with their opening statement. Both candidates will be given 3 minutes to tell us why they should be DeKalb County's next fire rescue chief. After opening statements, each candidate will alternate responding to the questions that you have submitted. The Human Resources Department has screened all of the questions in advance. So if there were duplicate questions about the same topic, we have just simply merged that into one question and included it. That will allow us to really address a wider range of questions. Now, we've received 14 questions in all, 7 from the department and 7 from the general public. So we have approximately 40 minutes here this evening, and we're going to hear from the candidates at this point in time. They will have 2 minutes to answer each question as I ask it, 2 minutes. And at the end of the question and answer session, each candidate will be given 3 minutes to do their closing statement. Whichever candidate opened first will give the final closing statement. So at this point, let's get started. Let me draw to see who will give our opening statement first. And that honor goes to Chief Everett.
Thank you.
You have the floor.
First, I do want, is the mic on properly? Okay. At first, I do want to thank the CEO, his staff, the personnel department, the fire department, and of course the community for allowing me to be here this evening to speak with you and to tell you a bit about myself and to get the opportunity to hear from you. And of course, I must always welcome the opportunity to leave 10 degrees in snow to come to 40 degrees in sun. So thank you. As mentioned, I'm currently the fire chief in Gary, Indiana. I have held other positions in Rochester, New York, as a deputy, a fire commissioner in Dade County, a fire chief in College Park. But I do want to say that I'm looking for the opportunity to come home. My family resides in the Georgia and Florida areas, and of course, I don't think I could have gotten any of them to relocate to that cold Chicago area, so I'm looking for a place to come to stay, to put down my roots. I'm here for the opportunity, not seeking the position of fire chief, but seeking to serve the community, to serve the department, to serve the city. I believe that's the first opportunity, that's something that you need to look at, is the opportunity to serve and to recognize that public service is just that. It's serving. As the fire chief, you'd be responsible for a multitude of areas. You have to be accountable, you have to be transparent, you have to be fair, you have to be flexible, and above all, recognize the need that first comes service to the community.
Thank you so much. Opening statement, Chief Fulham.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. And I also would like to thank the CEO for this opportunity to be with you this evening. I'd like to thank you all for coming. Obviously, you recognize how important this moment is. I'd just like to tell you a little bit about myself. Once again, the CEO did say that I'm from Fulton County Fire Department, right next door, so I'm pretty close. My whole career has been about service, and it really started with me joining the military at age 18. I had a conversation with somebody. I actually went down to the recruiter and joined without my mother knowing, but that's another story. But I spent 3 years in the military, and I reached the level of being a squad leader at age 20. That was really my first time being in a leadership position, and I discovered that I enjoyed it and that I could do it. After leaving the military with an honorable discharge, I decided to follow another dream of mine, and that was to become a firefighter. And I became a firefighter in 1987, and I was able to move through the ranks, becoming a lieutenant, a captain, a battalion chief, training chief, and really hitting all the different areas of the fire department. I even had an opportunity to serve in some positions outside of the fire department. I became the EMA director for about 7 months during a critical time when we were working on a mutual jurisdiction hazardous mitigation plan. Kind of a lot to get out. I also served, as the county was moving out of some of the cities, I served as the liaison or district chief. Was a unique opportunity to work with the cities, and in most cases they did decide to start their own fire department, but we had to provide service during that transitional period. So I think with my education and everything that I've done, it's prepared me for this moment and to be here at this time and to join your fire department. Thank you.
Thank you. Those are the opening statements. A first glance at our candidates. Let's move to our questions now. The first question. As chief of the department, what procedures would you institute to make the department more diverse from firefighter 1 through deputy chief? Chief Fulham. you will have the floor first. As a chief of the department, what procedures would you institute to make the department more diverse from firefighter 1 through deputy chief?
Well, first of all, let me say that I believe it starts with recruitment, and I think that's a year-round process, that you're going to recruit, you're looking for the best, and that you demonstrate by branding your department as being open to anybody who would want to come and join this great fire department. But as individuals move through the rank, what has to be there is a progression plan that shows them how do they get from one step to the other. I don't know that it's about a procedure, but I know that it's about showing that they have an opportunity to move from each rank to each level, that you have a promotional process that's transparent, that they know exactly what they need to move from one level to the other.
Thank you. Same question, Chief Everett. Once again, as chief of the department, what procedures would you institute to make the department more diverse from firefighter 1 through deputy chief?
Well, the first thing, my concept of diversity also includes the thought that there has to be inclusion. Because a department or any other area is diverse does not mean the thought process or the input from everybody is actually included. So the first thing that I would look at is analyze the department and look at what it takes from go to one rank to the other. Again, focusing on recruitment. The recruitment process has to be comprehensive and has to reflect the available workforce in your particular community. Typically here you want to look at, can we start our recruitment process from high school, or are we going to look at outside entities and look at what diversity actually means on this department? Are we talking skill sets, we're talking culture, we're talking race, or we're talking gender? We have to define what the diversity means. As far as the actual department, you can only have diversity at the ranks dependent on what your promotional process is. If your promotional process is based internally, based on testing, there's not a whole lot that you can do without adding some other dimension. So your promotional process must be comprehensive and must be multidimensional. I think I referenced that on yesterday. You have to look at what factors you can bring in that are going to enhance the diversity and the skill capacity of the given department. So those would be the procedures that I would look at first: assessment, recruitment entry level, and a thorough analysis of your promotional process.
Thank you. An additional question from the department along the same lines. So let me go ahead and ask more about that. Chief Everett, you will have the floor on this question first.
Okay.
So the question comes from one of the firefighters saying that there are not many African American females above the rank of captain. So the question is, how do you plan to address racial and gender diversity within the department? Chief Everett.
Okay. Above the rank of captain, it's my understanding here that those can be appointed positions. So you have other opportunities to do other types of recruitment, either internally or externally, if it is not a tested position. The first thing that I look at when you talk about increasing any gender or ethnicity is to make sure that the qualifications are clearly communicated, because you want to bring in a person that has a reasonable opportunity to succeed. I would look at doing a general recruitment that does not place barriers, but does not necessarily have an emphasis on any one gender. But I would open it up. I would look at that. Again, it would be a thorough analysis, because it's not just above the rank of captain. If you're short females, it starts at the bottom. The females are not going to just want to walk in above the rank of captain. It goes back to your basic recruitment analysis and how you get females in at the beginning, utilizing what you have in your recruitment process.
Thank you. Chief Fulham, the question, how would you address racial and gender diversity within the department?
Well, I do believe it starts with a thorough review of the promotional process from the beginning all the way through to deputy chief. So that'd be one of the first things I'd be doing in the first 30 days. I need to know how have we been promoting, and then I can determine what may be the stumbling blocks for anybody, whether it's female, African Americans. I want to identify those items, and then we can make changes.
Thank you so much. Next question, also from the department. Will you consider bringing the rescue function back to DeKalb County? Chief Fulham, you have the floor first. Would you consider bringing the rescue function back to DeKalb County?
Well, first, I guess I would have to know exactly what they're talking about with the rescue function. I'm going to define it as I know it.
Please.
So what I know as being the rescue function is the fact that DeKalb County had units that could transport, probably had 2 firefighters on board, probably a paramedic and maybe an EMT, and those units would respond to medical calls. So that's how I understand it to be. To say that I would bring it back, I don't know that there would be a need. We'd have to look at the need for having rescue units. I know DeKalb County runs a lot of calls. I think right under 100,000, which is amazing. So if that unit, that type of unit, could help to alleviate some of those runs, then maybe we would look at it. But it'd have to be something that I'd have to analyze before I'd make that decision.
Thank you. Chief Everett, would you consider bringing the rescue function back to DeKalb County?
Where I am now, we just combined a civilian EMS service into the sworn, so we are now a comprehensive fire-based EMS service. We do transport. One of the things that's facing the fire department or the fire service across the country is the impact on the new insurance guidelines that have just come through with the Obama health care plan. There are new ways now for fire departments to capture revenue looking at a paramedic-based program operating through the community. So before you would throw out or not continue to do the rescue EMS function, again, you would need to analyze it to see now where you can get additional resources in order to provide that service. And also, it's my understanding that in Georgia, once you give up your ability to provide the EMS and transport, you could lose that capability for a long time to come. So that is not something you necessarily want to throw away. EMS is not designed to be a profit-making entity. It is designed to provide a service for your community. So again, I think we need to analyze that new health care and to see what resources are now available to support EMS.
Thank you. Next question comes from the department as well. What will you do as a new chief to promote professional growth, not just for command staff, but also for a young firefighter? Chief Everett, we begin with you. What will you do as the new chief to promote professional growth, not just for the command staff, but also for the young firefighter?
One of the things that's kind of been discussed is the fact that there's attrition and firefighters are leaving to go to other departments. One of the things that kind of causes that, when firefighters come on, they want to know, what is my career path? What do I need to do to get promoted? The first thing you need to do is make the career path clear to everyone, how many years you need to serve in a certain capacity, what the training requirements are, and what the process to move forward is. I believe that there has to be a career path for every rank, every level, regardless of whether or not it's a civil service position or an appointed position. If a chief makes a decision that in order to be appointed to a particular position, a certain level or rank is required, then you need to stick to that. Everybody deserves the opportunity to have a transparent process and to understand what the requirements are. It has to be given when you come on board. You can't interject it after the fact. It then causes confusion. So I believe in laying out the career ladder and the requirements early, day one, starting at recruit training.
Thank you. Chief Fulham, the question, what would you do as a new chief to help promote professional growth, not just for the command staff, but also for a young firefighter?
Well, I do believe it starts at a young firefighter. We don't want that gap to occur after they leave recruit school, when that's the last day that they ever train. I think you do have to have a good succession plan that demonstrates how you can get to the next level, but it's also important that we're training individuals right where they are. We all know some individuals may not want to move to the next rank. They want to be that FAO, that good driver. They might like what they're doing, but we need to make sure that they're competent and able to do the job at whatever position they find themselves.
Thank you. Next question from the department as well. What plan will you implement to improve the relationship and image of this department with the community? Chief Fulham, we begin with you. Your plan to implement that you will implement to improve the relationship and the image of the department.
Well, I believe it starts with meeting with the public. They have to know who I am, and I have to meet them where they are. And I want them to tell me what we're doing well, what we're not doing as well, and how we can improve. To me, that's empowering the citizens so they know that what they say makes a difference. And when they do tell me, and it does make sense, we're going to do it. We're going to make those changes that will make us a better department and change that perception.
Thank you. Chief Everett, your thoughts and plan on the on how to improve the relationship and image of the department?
On yesterday, I had the opportunity to speak with several members of the department, and what I found was a very invigorated, excited department that had a host of skills and interest in enhancing what they were currently doing. So I think the first bit of improving the image is to work within. I found very excited, motivated people. The next thing is to come together on what our theme of service is going to be for customer service. Again, that's going to be customer service, professionalism, and competency. The next level would be to go out and again embrace the community. You have a very diverse community here, many different communities. They have a different focus and different needs. This department has the capacity to address all of those needs and embrace all the different cultures and all the different expectations. So as the face of the department, I would take that lead, but I would not go anywhere without representatives from my command staff who would also be able to interact with the community to show that we embrace them as one and we serve all with the same customer service, professionalism, and competency. Thank you.
Next question is along the same lines, still dealing with the community. The question from the team, are you willing to hold community education forums and awareness events in order to build strong partnerships? Chief Everett, you're first on this question. Are you willing to hold community education forums and awareness events in order to build strong partnerships?
That is a very strong focus for me. I don't think I've ever been anywhere where the community was not involved. We did not hold customer service events. I think that's important for all of the services that we provide on the fire department. The more awareness there's more appreciation. For example, with your code enforcement, you want to make sure the business community is well aware what the requirements are for your certificates or your permits. For public education, you want to reach out to all the segments of your community. You want those people that are using your EMS service to understand how to best utilize it. I welcome and embrace community forums and going into each and every separate community, not just necessarily having them at a central location. I believe we need to go to the people where they are.
Thank you. Chief Fulham, the question? As chief, what are some of, I'm sorry, that's the incorrect question. Let me ask you again. This one has to do with communities, the Community Education Forum, and the awareness events. Are you willing to do those in order to build strong partnerships?
Absolutely, absolutely. There's something that I always say, that I believe that it's a mistake when the first time a citizen sees a firefighter is when we have our lights and sirens on and we're pulling up in their driveway. Hopefully we've seen them before that, and we've met them in these type of events. I saw where there's over 300 neighborhoods and civic organizations in the county. That's a lot, very diverse. We have to get into those communities. We have to meet them where they are. And like I said, we don't want it to be that the first time they see us is when the lights and sirens are on.
Thank you. This next question is from the department, and they ask, in order to be of better service to the communities in which you do operate, are you willing to consider offering paramedic classes to those who want it, along with salary adjustments for the higher qualification? Chief Fulham, will begin with you. In order to be of better service to the communities, would you be willing to offer paramedic classes to those that want it, and of course the accompanying salary adjustment for that qualification?
It's definitely something I would look into. Out of those 100,000 calls that the department's running, from what I could see, about 90%, and that's about average across the nation, is EMS related. So we do need those paramedics. We do need EMTs to supplement what happens when an ambulance goes out and is not available to run a call. So it's definitely something I would look into, and if the finances are there, I first think handling or having the paramedic classes is probably the easier one. The pay may come along later.
Thank you. Chief Everett, same question. In order to be of better service, would you consider offering paramedic classes to those who want it and the salary adjustment for that higher qualification?
In order to be a full-service department, I think that is something we would definitely have to take on. In my current practice, I give a supplement to both EMT and paramedic. We also host our own classes where possible. We find that to be more cost-effective. We alter the schedule so that personnel may be assigned to a 40-hour basis so that they don't have to go to work and then go to class at the same time. So I, of course, support that. As long as it's in line with our desire to expand our EMS services, the number of paramedics that we host would have to be based on decisions. Are we going to run ALS engines? What are we exactly going to do with the number of paramedics that we have and where they're going to be placed? Because if you're a paramedic, you also have to be in an appropriate environment in order to properly utilize your paramedic skills.
Thank you. Next question, Chief Everett, we'll begin with you on this one. Will you bring in your own command staff or maintain the current interim staff? If so, if you plan on bringing in your own command staff, do you plan to review the qualifications for that staff?
The first thing I would do is assess what I have here. I've not made any commitments to bring anyone in. I don't know of anyone who'd be willing to leave cold Gary, Indiana to come to beautiful Georgia, so I did not exactly ask. But my first thought is to always look from within. You want to give those personnel that have been here the opportunity for moving up. I want to see what the skills are. I'm not necessarily convinced that you have to go outside and bring people in. I think there should be a competitive process. The requirements need to be put forward for everyone. That would not be my first move, is to relocate a command staff to come in. As I said on yesterday, I met some very exciting people that seemed as though they had a lot to offer. They're just looking for the opportunity to serve. So that would be my first move, is to look internal.
Thank you so much. Chief Fulham, same question. Will you bring in your own command staff or maintain the current interim staff?
Well, for me too, I don't have anybody who's ready to move, even though they would only be moving a couple miles. But no, I don't see a need to bring in individuals from the outside. There are some dynamic people here. I'm sure there's some diamond in the rough that are ready to come out and work very hard to get through the positions or through the ranks. Like I said, once we have a good succession plan, they'll know how they can get there. I hope to be here 10 years, and I hope that the next time that this panel will be represented by individuals from inside the department.
Thank you so much. This next question was put forward from the public and also from the department yesterday. Interim CEO May said yesterday that he would like to have a long-term commitment to this appointment. Please give an example of a recent long-term commitment to an employer and some of your department goals that you set in place and followed through with that employer. Chief Fulham, we'll begin with you on this question.
Okay. Well, I believe the first part of that question was to
An example of long-term commitment to an employer.
Yeah, that would be with Fulton County. I've been there for 26 years. I started there as a firefighter, and as I said earlier, I moved through the ranks, so I've been there. I'm not coming here to look for a job. I have a job. I'm looking for an opportunity, so I am willing to leave for that opportunity. I believe the second part of the question.
The second part of the question, and let me give it to you, please, so you have a moment to think it through. Please list some of your departmental goals that you put in place at Fulton County in this example and that were followed through by that employer. So by Fulton County.
That were followed through by the employer.
A list of departmental goals that you set in place and that were followed through and put in place at Fulton County.
Probably one of the ones I could speak to very quickly is the promotional process that we have in Fulton County. I was given a lot of latitude in creating our promotional process, and we use an assessment center, and I think it has worked quite well. That started around 2009, and we haven't perfected it. Believe me, every time we do it, we improve upon it. But that's something that I think has been very successful. We've had several evaluators that have come from this department right here and have given us good advice, which we've implemented. So I think that's one example.
Thank you, Chief Everett. I'll give you the question in two parts the same way. The first part, an example of a recent long-term commitment to an employer.
As indicated, probably if you looked at my resume closely, the first half of my working life coming out of college, I spent at Miami-Dade Community College. The fire service was a second career for me coming in 1989. So though I know I may not look a day over 15, I've been out here for a while. So I'm allowed to have more than one career. But the first part, I served on college faculty. In 1989, I crossed over and came into the fire service and entered into that. And since that particular time, I had the opportunity to work not only starting my career in West Palm Beach, but in order to move up, because of the way it was in Florida, everywhere you could not necessarily hire and move straight up, you could hire in from the outside. So I went to Orange County as a district chief, and I left there and went to Rochester and went to other places at the higher ranks because those are appointed from the outside positions. It's not necessary to necessarily stay within that one particular rank, department. So for me, having moved to different departments, I think that brought with it the opportunity to get a different set of skills. So while I was not in that one place for one department, that was because of the way the terms are set up for fire chief. They're hired from the outside.
And so part two of the question is an example, a list of departmental goals that you set in place then at one of those employers that you would like to tell us about.
Probably the greatest emphasis for all the employers or the places that I've worked as a chief officer has always been strategic planning and recruitment and developing an upward mobility plan. Where I am now, I can give you an example to do succession planning. I've reorganized the department, I've restructured the budget, and I've also put in place an effort to try to get more diversity. There are not very many women where I am now, but the recruitment process was always there. But my continuing theme throughout my resume is you will see I have always been the person that is tasked with coming up with recruitment and promotional processes and strategic planning. So I've always met those goals wherever I've been.
Thank you. The next question comes from the department. Chief Everett, we'll begin with you. Are you of the opinion that you should be the last outside individual to lead the fire rescue department?
I should be the last.
Outside individual to
I
lead
would-
the fire rescue department.
I would like to think that after a chief has been in place, their first obligation is to do internal planning so that there can be succession planning. I like to think that if you have the proper resources in place, promotional opportunities, training is available, that you don't necessarily need to go outside of department. Actually, going outside of the department is a leadership decision above the level of the fire department. So while I think it's important that as a chief, I have always done command staff training for my personnel. I've never seen myself as the only person that can come in from the outside. I have always gone with the understanding that if I were to leave or fall into a hole, as I like to say, that my command staff, someone is there to step in and keep the ball moving. It is not a singular responsibility.
Thank you. Chief Fulham, same question. Are you of the opinion that you should be the last outside individual to lead the fire rescue department?
What I believe is that I should prepare those individuals to make it so that I'm preparing individuals that are coming behind me so that when it does get to the decision, the choice is easily made to have somebody from the inside.
Thank you. So this next question first goes to you, Chief Fulham, and this one comes from a citizen. As a citizen and also a family member of an employee in the department, this person expresses disappointment in promotional practices. The question, can you please explain how you plan to address the department's promotional policies and practices?
Well, I think we spoke a little bit about that earlier, but I would do a complete review of the promotional process, and that would be in concert with speaking with the Human Resources Department to find out what can we do, what are we allowed to do, what's permissible. But I'd want to review that plan in place and see if there's any hurdles that are created by the promotional process itself. As I said earlier too, it starts not only with the promotional process. It's actually too late when we're asking for applications. We have to make sure we're training individuals and having them prepared to take the promotional process. A quality process will create quality candidates.
Chief Everett, same question. Your thoughts and explanation on how you will address the department's promotional practices and policies.
I think from what I've read thus far, there appears to be a two-tiered process here. One is an appointment process and one is civil service based on testing. I would first want to examine if both of those different processes are in fact effective. You need to look at the rank structure. You also need to look for your service demand. Are the promotions being made simply because there are vacancies, or are the promotions being made because there is a need based on the services that you need to provide? A total analysis first must be done. If there are opportunities for promotions and they're valid promotions, and the list is, everybody's on the eligibility list, well, of course, you would move forward with an examination again of your service expectations and your budget. The funding is key because you have available openings. Does not necessarily mean you have the funding available to do that. But I do believe that there is room for an assessment and a review to make sure each of those areas is appropriate based on the testing and responsibilities assigned.
Thank you. This next question, Chief Everett, will begin with you. How do you put in place the best processes to get things done?
Well, first of all, it always seems as though you never have enough time to get everything done that comes your way. But one of the most important things for me is to make sure there's a clear understanding of what the timelines are and the expectations. I also believe in delegating responsibilities. As a fire chief, you have to utilize your command staff and all the various bureau chiefs that you have available to you. It's very clear that you have a good timeline, you establish the goals and objectives, what the outcomes are going to be, and what those expectations are. I do all of mine by planning. I hold my command staff meeting, we bring up the chart, we write it out, we put the dates, and we clearly assign areas of responsibility. That's my process.
Chief Fulham, same question. How do you put in place the best processes to get things done?
Well, I too believe that first you have to identify the problem, make sure that you have a clear understanding of what you're trying to do. I do believe that planning should take place, and it should be at least twice as long as the implementation process. I also think that you have to identify what success is going to look like at the end. So you have to know at what point can we say we have truly accomplished what we are trying to do.
Thank you. This next question Chief Everett, we'll begin with you on this one. As economic development is very important and essential to the growth of DeKalb County, one of the key components is the final issuance of a certificate of occupancy, which really allows for businesses to open. So the question is, have you in your position as fire chief encountered problems in this area? And how will you enhance the process for the growth of DeKalb County?
I think one of the things you have to look at is, are you utilizing a one-stop shop concept? Can a citizen or a business owner come to one place and quickly move through all the steps requirement to get the various permits and certificates? I think it has to be clearly communicated. It needs to be posted online. Whatever services community can achieve online, I think that needs to be available to them. But all of the different aspects of the process need to be clearly communicated. Oftentimes there's a lot of redundancies, and the business owners just go back and forth, when things should move smoothly in one process. I think we need to look at, are we adequately staffed? Do we have enough plans reviewers? Do we need to have a fire protection engineer on board? Are there other relationships that the fire department needs to have to make this process move a lot smoother? I think that has always been a bottleneck for economic development, is people coming in saying it takes too long to get things done. So we need to review that process. As a fire chief, I'd look to have a very close relationship with the fire marshal and all those persons involved in code enforcement and in compliance.
Chief Fulham, it's the same question. Have you in your position as fire chief encountered problems with the certificate of occupancy process, and how will you enhance the process for the growth of DeKalb County?
Well, I have served as the fire marshal, so I have dealt with issues that may have taken place in our process. And what I find is it does start, once again, with a forensic review of the process. You have to know at the point when that customer comes in, whether it's bringing in plans or whatever service that they're looking for, that the process is smooth, that we're using innovative ways to make sure that what they're looking for is done quickly. And then we also do have to make sure that the folks that we are asking to do the job are trained. And the final item is that we also want to make sure that we're always reaching out to our customers and that we're getting their opinion where we can improve and how we can do better.
Thank you. Along that same line, let's go back to a bit about marketing and talking about taking the department to the community. Chief Fulham, I'll begin with you on this question. How do you plan on educating the public on the role of the department in the community and the role of 911 operations?
And you said the fire department?
Yes, the actual role of the DeKalb County Fire Rescue. How would you plan on educating the public on the role of the department as well as the role of the 911 operations?
Right, and that's very important. Once again, I spoke about the fact that I don't want the citizens' first contact to be when we pull up with lights and sirens. So that education has to be ongoing. It has to be at those community meetings, those events. We have to make sure it's on our website so that they understand, why does a fire truck show up when I thought I was going to get an ambulance? And we also have to demonstrate to them that that station, that local station in their area, is just a small part of what can be brought to bear. There's 26 fire stations. There's hazmat. There's search and rescue. So we have to demonstrate those items to them so that they understand what they're getting when they do call for the DeKalb County Fire Department.
Chief Everett, same question. How do you plan on educating the public on the role of the DeKalb County Fire Rescue Department throughout the community and the role of 911 operations?
Well, I'd very much like to use the television system to do various concepts in fire protections and service delivery. We could have a different feature every month, something that we could put out to the citizens to let them know more about what we do on a daily basis. Secondly, I'd like to have fire station open houses. I really believe that the citizens enjoy coming in, seeing what we do, being able to communicate with the people that serve their various communities. So I think that marketing starts first at the community base, backed up with something that we could put out in a mass-produced way, but yet give a sense of understanding to the community. And also those topics need to be targeted to the different segments in the population that we have. Finally, it's my understanding that 911 reports to the police department. So the first thing I would do is to reach out to the police department and talk about how we can effectively communicate with the citizens the best way to use 911. You never want to tell a person not to call the service, but we want to make sure that they use it effectively. And that might mean it needs to be backed up with priority dispatching. We might need to have a 311 system that citizens have somewhere else to call other than 911 for other essential or support services.
Thank you. This brings us to our final question of the evening. Now, in the past, this one comes from the department as our final question. In the past, this firefighter says seniority dictated which fire apparatus operators drove the truck. Now, captains have the discretion to decide who drives. Currently, the department has experienced drivers rotating with those of lesser experience. The question: are you in agreement with this current practice of allowing captains to appoint drivers? Chief Everett, I believe we go to you for this question first.
That's not fair. Okay. I believe that seniority should play in a factor, but I also believe that needs to be balanced off with skills and experience. There also has to be an objective process of allowing people to drive or perform any rank. Once you begin allowing elements to be done strictly on seniority or strictly on who someone likes, you often find yourself having to deal with morale issues. So I would want to look at by what process are the captains using to decide who does drive. Just based on the question, I'm not sure what the criteria is. If they're only picking the senior person, is the person who got the best score on the competency testing. I kind of don't have enough information, but I would want to make sure that any qualified driver had the opportunity to drive. I don't know if there's a bid system in place, but I would want to look at that because I believe everyone should have an opportunity. But I do know that 9 out of 10, every company officer, every captain is going to want to make sure that whoever's driving that apparatus is able to provide water and provide the services that are needed once they get on scene. That's a very key position on the fire department.
Thank you. Chief Fulham, same question. Are you in agreement with the current practice of allowing captains to appoint drivers?
Well, I'd like to first see the full program and what that really means, and that the driver is allowed to pick the person who drives. I do believe that there should be a driver who drives every shift, who knows that equipment, who knows those streets, who knows how that officer has confidence in. I don't know that it should happen every shift. Now, there has to be some training. I think also you asked whether it should be based upon seniority.
Yes.
Seniority can be a part of it, but that individual has to be competent. It can't be the only factor. So one of the items that I would do is when I got in here, I would look at what is the program for training a driver. So how do we get that person to that point that then that captain can even make that decision? So I'd want to review the whole program.
Thank you so much. That brings us to the end of the questions that have been submitted today. And I'd like to thank really both of the candidates for preparing for this informative session. Let's give them a round of applause. A major thank you to the interim CEO, Lee May, and the Board of Commissioners, really, for their leadership in spearheading this event and making sure that this forum happened for the community and the department. And I'd like to certainly thank all the departments that were involved in making this happen. That would include Fire Rescue, a big thank you to them, as well as Human Resources, the Communications Division, Tyrone Hardiman specifically, and thank you for watching on DeKalb County Television, where this has been an important forum for all engaged, both in the auditorium and in the comforts of their home. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for participating in this very important event. CEO Lee May, is he here in the building? There he is. Sir, I'd like to give you the floor.
They have their closing remarks.
We need
first,
closing
and then I'll
remarks.
come in and
Thank
give
you
my-
so much. So let's do that. We began with Chief Everett, so we'll go to Chief Fulham to start our closing remarks, sir.
Okay. Well, once again, I'd like to thank CEO May for this opportunity to be here. Once again, the questions have demonstrated that people understand how important this decision is, and it's only made me more confident that I'm ready to lead this fire department and to serve this vibrant and diverse community. Thank you.
Thank you. Closing statement, Chief Everett.
First, I want to say that I thank everyone for coming out. Not only was it an opportunity for you to hear my perspectives, but I heard your questions. I heard the concerns coming from both the community and the department. And I think that's important in making a decision such as this, to know that you're in tune with the questions that are being asked. And I think some of the questions that were raised are facing fire departments across this country. So again, I came here to be a part of a team, not necessarily to be the one and only fire chief with the sole decision-making authority. I will take responsibility, but I believe this is a team effort. It has to be a team relationship between the fire department, the community, and the fire chief. And again, thank you for the opportunity to hear from you and for me to share with you. Thank you.
Thank you. CEO May.
Thank you, Ms. Grant. Let's give Ms. Grant a round of applause for facilitating this meeting. This makes me feel like this is a presidential debate, and it didn't remind you of that. Let me thank you all for coming out and participating in this. One of these candidates will be the new fire chief for our county, and it is my expectation that we will have a fire chief in position that will lead this department for the long term. That is one of my high priorities. In terms of this, I believe the citizens of this county deserve this. I believe the men and women who show up each and every day in this department deserve this longevity as well. And it is my desire to make a choice soon. I would love to go into the new year having a selection made, which means I have some praying to do and some thinking to do over the holiday break. I believe we have to have leadership in place to go into the new year ready to move forward, ready to move this department forward in making sure that we are investing in this department. We're investing in the men and women who serve in this department and making sure that we have a safe county for all to live, work, and play. So again, I want to thank you all for coming out this evening. Thank you all for your support. Thank you all for your commitment to our county and just even for your interest in the new leadership in our fire and rescue department. So God bless you all. Be safe tonight. It's cold. It's a little bit wet, but I appreciate your attendance here this evening. Thank you all.